Oh God, take my lips and speak through them. Take our minds and think through them. Take our hearts and set them on fire. Take our hands and feet and serve through them. And take our wills and bend them according to your purpose. Amen. Please be seated. I don't know about you, but it seems that you and we are always going through new beginnings. And in those new beginnings, there seems to be a moment of truth. That moment in those new beginnings that seems to shift everything. So, for example, there were millions gathered in Times Square a couple weeks ago when the ball dropped, but you may have been in another local gathering, and it's at the turn of the new year, that moment of truth when you and I might quietly utter under our breath, or maybe we even write it down, our New Year's resolutions. That's the moment of truth. Do you know that in America, 70% of New Year's resolutions are already out the window by the 10th of January? That was 2 days ago. So if you've already given up on yours, you have a lot of company. Or the new beginning could be when someone walks across the stage and they have that rolled up piece of paper and a dean or a president or a principal hands them this piece, and those in the audience, usually parents and grandparents, they're quietly praying, will this education please prepare this new beginning, this moment of truth for many years to come? Or the new beginning might be when that baby comes into the world, like this child who's going to be baptized, or children and grandchildren come into the world. Those of us who are around that occasion, we quietly wonder, what's this person going to be like? What does she or he look like? What kind of character will this new child have? That's the moment of truth. Or it's when a person walks down the aisle to join up with his or her partner in holy matrimony, and they say vows, hold hands, exchange rings, and in that moment of truth, they're fervently hoping that this marriage will be life-giving. Well, we're going to have a moment of truth in just a little bit with Brooks Lennon. When Brooks is presented at the font, and in that liturgy, Dean Kate will then say, "You are marked as Christ's own forever." That's the moment of truth when the church declares that Brooks Lennon has a child of God and is special, grace-filled in God's eyes. What a moment. And in those moments of truth, you and I have in ourselves a large question, and that is, how is it that I can live into my destiny? Now, we may not put it in those terms. We may not use that kind of sophisticated language. But what's going on in all those new beginnings and more is you and I are wondering, how can I live into what I am made to be? And you and I all have a purpose and a destiny for being brought into this world. Sometimes you and I work on that question through our cultural ways. But our culture is fond of what I would call self-improvement projects. Go to the how-to bookshelf of any bookstore, and that's a very popular section. How can I improve myself? How can I work on myself? It's built into us that you and I, through maybe a white-knuckled grip and determination, just keep my nose to the grindstone. If I just set up enough of a discipline, then I can improve myself. This carries into what even might be called the frivolous. I came across this ad last month. It was keenly done by the ad agency that put this together. They were asked by a shower company to sell their shower heads. I didn't know that shower heads are now called shower systems. I thought you just bought a shower head. Now they're called systems. And in this ad, it's cleverly done. There's 3 showers and 3 frames. They're all guys. I think they did that on purpose. Men have more to work on. And so it's discreetly done, though, so you can't see their bodies, but you know they're in the shower, and the shower head that they're telling you is going. The water's coming out of the shower heads. And in the first frame, this guy is saying to himself while he's taking the shower, I kicked my golf ball out of the sand trap when no one was looking, and I still made a triple bogey. As he's cleansing himself, second frame then has this guy saying, I wrote my son's book report, and we got a C-. Third frame, he's saying, I asked a woman when the baby was due, but she wasn't pregnant. Oops. And then in big letters underneath the 3 showers are huge letters that read, cleanse thyself big time. Thought, how clever. Cleanse thyself big time. Goes on to write, seems nowadays you don't even have to break a sweat to feel filthy. Thank goodness there's a shower system that can reach all the deep down dirt other showers can't touch. So now, no matter what's clinging to your body, munching on your bones, camping out in your soul, thought that's interesting. Then it names the shower company. I won't name them here. That shower system will stare it down and clean you up. Then it finishes this way, cast away your showers of old and start living a cleaner life. Shower systems for the body and for the soul. Wow. But we say that, don't we? We don't say it out loud. Cleanse thyself big time. We all know that we need some improvement to begin to live into our destiny. That's what we're up to today in the baptism of Jesus, cleansing souls. But we don't buy a shower system. We go back to the font. And we join children, both at 9 and 11. And we join all of us who've been brought by grace into this family of God. Jesus arrived at the Jordan River and presented himself for baptism. John the Baptist and all of us asked the question, why did Jesus present himself for a sinner's baptism with his cousin John? That was John's question too. He actually protested. I shouldn't baptize you. You should baptize me. You're the only one, he didn't say this, I'm adding this on, you're the only one who has walked this earth who's in total harmony with the Creator. You don't need this baptism, John might have been saying. I need to be baptized by you. And yet Jesus presents himself for this baptism. Why did Jesus of Nazareth, the only one who is in total harmony with the Creator, present himself at the Jordan River? I want to answer that question by 2 short stories. C.S. Lewis tells the first one. It's about a lawyer. On a cold, rainy London night, was strolling home from work under his umbrella. Raining, cold, bundle up kind of weather. He was crossing the bridge across the Thames River, one of them. He looked off and saw a silhouette of a human being climbing up onto the edge of the bridge. And then to his horror, he saw that silhouette then go off the edge of the bridge. He runs out to that part of the bridge, gets to the edge, looks over the bridge, and to his shock, there is a young woman thrashing around in the deep, cold water. The The young lawyer is frozen in his tracks. He doesn't know what to do, and therefore he doesn't do anything and watches her perish in the Thames River. He's horrified, traumatized by this event for years. If only, he says to himself over and over and over again. Finally, he comes to his own wit's end. One cold, rainy night again, he goes to that portion of the bridge and yells out into the air, "Oh, young woman, please throw yourself into the Thames River again so that I may come in after you and save both of our souls." Wow. When Jesus presents himself at the Jordan River, he says in no qualification, "I do not stand on the river's edge. I don't stay up on the bridge. I don't call out from a distance. This is not an arm-length relationship that I have with the world." Jesus swims in the water with us, you see, even when it's dark and cold and when it threatens to overwhelm us. When I was in seminary in the late 70s, several times a week I would drive into the District of Columbia from Alexandria, Virginia, and where I did my parish work, and I would cross the 14th Street Bridge. I knew that bridge like the back of my hand. I could cross it. I knew every little piece of that bridge because it was so familiar. The year after I graduated from seminary, on January the 13th, that's tomorrow in the calendars, on January the 13th, Air Florida Flight number 93 took off from National Airport there at the Potomac. It was a terrible, cold, icy morning. Believing that they had cleaned all the ice off of the wings, that Air Florida pilot took off, ascended for a while, and then the weight of the ice then careened it down where it scraped across the 14th Street Bridge and then was cast into the icy waters of the Potomac. I could feel this event. I knew exactly where on that bridge it sends shudders because of driving over and across and back across that bridge where it would have scraped across and then in horror dipped into that Potomac. It didn't explode. It just went into the Potomac and began to float and then began to sink. Within a matter of minutes, there were rescue helicopters dropping lifelines down, and there were rescue workers on the edge of the Potomac working feverishly trying to throw lines out to anyone who may have come out of the door. The first one out of the door was a bald-headed, middle-aged man who began to float in the icy water. He took hold of that lifeline from the helicopter, and then as the world watched on television, passed that lifeline on to the next person who came out of the plane. That bald-headed man did that, passed that lifeline over and over and over and over again. Later that day, the pilot of the helicopter, through tears, recounted this scene that he watched from his birdie perch. In tears, he said, "You can't imagine what I saw. That ordinary person passing that lifeline on to strangers, one after the other, until finally he said, we couldn't see him anymore. He was gone. We learned later, he said, his name was Arlen Williams. Arlen Williams, 46 years old, single, divorced bank examiner from Atlanta, Georgia. A regular person like us. Could have been any of us. A bank examiner, bald, 46, had it within him, you see, to pass that lifeline on to strangers so that they could live. He didn't stay frozen in the water. He didn't snatch that lifeline for himself. Passed it, passed it, passed it. In Jesus' baptism, he doesn't stand on water's edge. He doesn't stand high above us on the edge of the bridge. He swims in the water with us, even when that water threatens to overwhelm us. And in his baptism, we hear those profound words. It's the moment of truth. This is my beloved child, in whom I am well pleased. It's a direct connection to the Old Testament text, which is accounted for today. It's not in your bulletin. Read it later from Isaiah chapter 42. It's the fourth of what's called the suffering servant songs. There's 4 of them in Isaiah, and this is the last one in chapter 42. And what do we know about the suffering servant psalms is it says, when Messiah comes, he will not be high and lifted up. He won't stand aloof. He won't sit on a throne, arms linked to his subjects. When Messiah comes, Isaiah declares, he will be a suffering servant. What did Israel expect before Isaiah said those words? They expected a Davidic kingship, one who would rule from a distance with power and money and wealth and influence. What did we get in Jesus of Nazareth? We got one who washes feet. We got one who eats with outcasts. We got one who communes with the poor. One who touches lepers. We received a Messiah who's a suffering servant, who jumps into the water with us, no matter who we are, what our race is or orientation, no matter who we love, no matter how many mistakes we've made, no matter what, climbs into the water with us and swims with us and is with us even when that water threatens to overwhelm us. So we hear the voice again today as we celebrate that baptism long ago in the Jordan. This is my beloved child, in whom I am well pleased. Can we hear those words again today as we witness this baptism? Can you hear those words again about you? This is my beloved child, in whom I am well pleased. And in hearing those words again as your moment of truth, then can you and I also begin to take in afresh in this new year, 2020, how each of us then would be called in that baptism to extend the lifeline to others, to begin again reaching out with your heart and your mind, your time and your resources to say, I'm going to be like Arlen Williams, that bald-headed 46-year-old bank examiner. and I'm going to extend God's love, God's lifeline to other people. Amen.